How many times a day would you say you get a social media notification and without thinking about it, you instantly reach for your phone? Or better yet, how many times a day do you get distracted from tasks because of social media? We've all fallen victim to these situations at one point or another. This goes to show that millions of people use social media on a daily basis, but underestimate the negative effects it actually has on them. After doing an extensive amount of research on social media and the statistics that correlate, I have discovered the true impacts that it carries along in this speech. I will discuss these impacts along with how social media can be influential, but in the wrong ways. To get a better understanding about why it's a bad thing, let's talk about social media's history and its upbringing. At this time and age, it's hard to think of a time where social media wasn't a thing, though it actually wasn't too long ago that the concept was a far-off thought. According to History Cooperative, in just 2005, only 5% of Americans use social media, and the rest of the world didn't even know what it was. This being said, the history of our online world is a very brief one, and it progressed rather quickly. Their roots really lie within the emergence of the internet. It wasn't until the 1960s and 1970s that people started trying to come up with ways to make computers be able to communicate with other computers. However, it wasn't until the 1990s when computers became more accessible to individuals. This created the platform for the first social media site because more and more people had access to the internet. The first true social media site was called 6 Degrees. According to History Cooperative, the reason 6 Degrees is considered to be the first social media network is because it allowed people to sign up with their email addresses, make individual profiles, and add friends to their personal social networks. It was officially launched in 1997, and it lasted about 2001. Its number of users peaked at around 3.5 million people, and it was brought out by YouShare social media networks in 1999 for $125 million, but it shut down just 1 year later. This form of social media is very different to what we have now, but you can still see the similarities and how it influenced the types of social media we use today. It's all based on communication with one another on an online platform instead of being face-to-face, and the goal is to make communication easier and more accessible. Now that we know how social media originated, let's discuss how it has a negative impact in today's society. According to Digital 2020, more than 4.5 billion people use the internet worldwide, and while social media passed the 3.8 billion mark. This accounts for about 60% of the world's population. And to give a little more insight on who exactly makes up the most of social media's usage, I conducted my own survey, and the results weren't very shocking. In fact, I predicted the exact outcome. According to my survey, 100% of college students in my class use some sort of social media platform. This aids in the argument that individuals around this age make up the majority of social media's usage. A big reason for why social media doesn't have a good influence is because it has been known to negatively impact mental health of individuals, especially with kids and young people. They are more easily influenced, which means they start to compare themselves to the perfect fantasies people create online, even though in reality they're just facades. This leads to a plethora of mental health problems. The Royal Society for Public Health conducted a survey for ages 14 to 24 in the UK about how social media impacted their overall health. The results were astonishing. The results proved that specific social media platforms that people use every day lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, poor body image, and loneliness. Another huge impact that social media has created is cyberbullying. This happens all over the world, and it wouldn't be a possibility if it weren't for social media. Social media makes it easier for people to attack and bully one another behind a screen without consequences and leaving the victims in a really bad mental state. According to the Organic Agency, who conducted a study in Britain, suicide is the third leading death in young people, and at least half the suicides that take place are because of this type of bullying. If the fact that young people are committing suicide at the fault of social media doesn't make people realize the true impacts, I don't know if anything ever will. Now that we have Now that we know the negative impact social media leaves on society, let's wrap it up. Although social media has positive aspects that contribute to its huge popularity, its negative impacts greatly outweigh them. Social media creates a platform for numerous mental health problems to arise and bullying to occur. Not to mention the lack of an actual social life the newer generation has because of social media as well. Overall, social media does not have a good impact on people, especially those that are younger because of the effects, if you will, that come along with it. So the next time you post something or go to comment on someone else's post, really think about what the effects of your post can have on someone, because you really don't know who could see it, and it could inflict more harm than good.